this edition of Mic'd Up. Hit us up on our Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. Outside of Topeka, 785-272-9429. Check us out on YouTube. Very simple, very easy. Go to youtube.com. Search Sports on 580. Click on it. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like. You can check out all of our recaps on all things high school, Washburn, KU, K-State, Chiefs, Royals, all the good stuff, as well as both 580 Sports Talk and Mic'd Up. Don't forget, check us out on Twitter at Sports on 580. That's 580-580, as we will get to a lot of Chiefs talk today. Matt Derrick, our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider, will be joining us coming up at the bottom of the hour. Dan Lucero at 1:30 on a little crosstalk. We got plenty to get to when it comes to this Tuesday afternoon. Big numbers for the Big 12 title game. I mean, we're talking terrific numbers for the Big 12 title game. We'll get to that. We're going to talk a little trash talk as one of the Kansas City Chiefs still talking, which is a move you can do. I wouldn't probably go that route, but that is a move that you can do. So we'll get to all of that coming up on this edition of Mic'd Up. But the first thing that I want to discuss today about the Kansas City Chiefs is it's a very simple topic. The Chiefs themselves are the biggest issue when they play meaningful games. I have said that it is not time to freak out if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. There were a lot of things that went wrong in the game for the Chiefs. A lot of things. But a lot of those things I don't think will be corrected because that is who the Chiefs are. Once is a happenstance, twice is a, maybe a little bit unlucky break, but 3 times, 4 times, that's kind of a trend. And that's kind of just who you are. But let's look at the Kansas City Chiefs. And as I said, don't freak out. They had the football up by 4 with 11 minutes to go. They had a big fumble. Defense couldn't get a stop. Defense couldn't get any pressure. Chiefs offensive line couldn't hold up. And Andy Reid made some questionable decisions when it comes to down and distance, to go for it, field goals, play calling, that are pretty easy to see. That is what the Chiefs have been like the last really 2 years, this year and last year. Let's go back to the just the 3 losses in general this year. When they lost to the Colts, let's look at the checklist items here for the Chiefs. A big mental mistake on the offense at a crucial point. The game against the Colts. Well, they technically had 2 of them, but a big mental mistake for the Kansas City Chiefs. 1, the trash talk penalty on Chris Jones. 2, Travis Kelce dropping a wide open pass in the end zone. And then 3, you have the muff punt by Sky Moore. Those are all individual stuff. That has nothing to do with the Colts. Has nothing to do with the Colts. Travis Kelce not catching a pass in the end zone. He just has to catch it. The Colts didn't do anything. That's all on Travis Kelce. Sky Moore, got to catch the punt. At that point in time, that's on Sky Moore. That was the first time that he muffed a punt. Chris Jones, whether you agree with it or not, when it comes to the officials, at that point in time, that cost the Chiefs. So those are the mental mistakes at some big time moments. Travis Kelce catches the ball in the end zone, it's touchdown, Chiefs win. Same thing, more than likely, Chris Jones doesn't get the penalty, the Chiefs probably win. At the end of the game against the Bengals, the Chiefs didn't get to the quarterback. They really didn't get to the quarterback a whole lot at the end of the game against the Colts. The offensive line, they didn't protect well at the end of the game. I mean, Patrick Mahomes got sacked when they rushed 3. Same thing in the game against the Colts. And then finally, a bad decision by head coach Andy Reid at a crucial point. Pretty simple in the game against the Bengals. You decide to throw it on 3rd and 3, and then no matter what, incomplete, 4th and 3 at the 33, they were going to kick the field goal. To me, that was a bad decision. Let's go back to the Colts game. Do you remember they decided to run a fake field goal? And then they decided to kick a field goal at the end of the game instead of giving the ball to Mahomes. So that's one loss this year with the Colts. Colts and the Bengals, pretty much a mirror, to be honest with you. How many things had to go right for the Colts to win that game? Well, they had to have a muff punt. You had to have a drop to touchdown by Travis Kelce. You had to have a bad play by Chris Jones. Andy Reid deciding to kick field goals with a backup field goal kicker instead of trusting Patrick Mahomes. What happened against the Bengals? Pretty much the same situation. Now let's go to the Bills game. Couldn't protect Mahomes. That's obviously against the Bills. No question. Could you get to Josh Allen late? Not at all. When it comes to a bad play at the end of the game, Patrick Mahomes threw an interception when they had a chance to drive down and potentially win the game. And then the play calling at the end of the game. Chiefs went 3 and out. And if you remember, the play calling was not ideal. That's the loss to the Bills. Let's go back last year in the AFC title game. Pretty simple. Could they get to Joe Burrow? Nope, they didn't bring him down. We know that. Did they protect Patrick Mahomes? No, they didn't. The bad decision by Andy Reid. 2nd and goal from the 4. You throw it. 3rd and goal from the 8. You throw it. That's a bad decision by Andy Reid. 2nd and goal from the 4 at the end of the game. Run the ball on 2nd and 4. Gain 2 yards. It's 3rd and 2. Run the ball. It's not hard. And maybe then at the end of the game, you could try to kick it and tie it, or you go for it again. All of these games are the exact same. They are the exact same against these opponents, and especially good opponents. The Kansas City Chiefs don't have to play their A game to beat most teams. The Kansas City Chiefs beating the Arizona Cardinals. They can fumble the ball. They can do a lot of different things, and they're still going to win because they have a lot better players than the Cardinals. Same thing with the Chargers. The Chargers are going to charge you, and they did both games this year. The Chargers are not even remotely close to the same team as the Bengals and the Bills. And you can go up and down this game or the schedule for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Jaguars, they did not play their A game. The Rams, they didn't play their A game. They've played their A game, to me, twice this year. Against the Buccaneers and against the 49ers. In close games against good teams, you cannot make the mistakes that the Chiefs have made. The game against the Buccaneers, we remember this one. The Kansas City Chiefs got out to such a good start, that they didn't have to really worry about the end of the game. And even then, at the end of the game, Mahomes threw a bad interception when they were up 41-24. They ended up scoring. Chiefs were still up by 10 with 2 minutes to go in the game. But they built up such a good lead that the end of the game didn't matter. Same thing against the 49ers. In the game against the 49ers, they built such a good lead that you really didn't have to worry about the finish. The Kansas City Chiefs, after the 49ers, got it to a 5-point game. It was 28-23. The Chiefs did not end up self-inflicting themselves. And that was that. Now, they did have 2 turnovers in the game, what goes to show you the one turnover didn't have a factor in it late. But this Chiefs team is the same team in close games. Every time that they lose, I should say, I don't think it's so much on the opponent. It's more on the Chiefs. I think it's more on Travis Kelce not holding on to the football. I think it's Travis Kelce not catching the pass. I think it's Andy Reid not making the right decision. Those are the biggest factors. In every one of these losses, it is a turnover and a bad decision. The O-line and the D-line, that does have an effect on the opponent. They do. I don't care who the opponent is. When you're rumbling, there's 3 dudes around you. You can't fumble the football. That's not on the Bengals to me. That's on Travis Kelce. Andy Reid making those decisions in the AFC title game, in the game against the Colts, in a game against the Bengals, and that has nothing to do to me with the opposing team. That's Andy Reid making a bad decision. But that's not new in losses. To me, the last time that the Kansas City Chiefs got beat by the opponent, no questions asked, without any help from themselves, was in the Super Bowl against the Bucs. Now, it's not 100% the self-inflicted wounds. I mean, Joe Burrow made a tremendous pass to T. Higgins on 3rd and 8 to get the first down. There's some other aspects to that. But if Travis Kelce doesn't fumble the football, if Andy Reid makes better decisions, I think the outcome is completely different. Unfortunately, that's kind of who they are. We've known this from Andy Reid for quite some time. That's kind of living with the great, but also living with the bad with Andy Reid. And this Chiefs team at times has some serious brain cramps. Like, I never would have thought Travis Kelce was going to fumble that football. For the Kansas City Chiefs in the big games, they are not causing problems. When they win, it's because they are clean. And that's what the Chiefs have to do better at. They need to be the one to play better in the big game. You can get away with that against the Chargers. You can get away with that against the Raiders because they're not good football teams. Their record and their history has shown it. But the Bills, they are. The Bengals, they are. That is something that the Chiefs need to address. I think this says more about the Chiefs and their losses, their last 4 against the Bengals, Bills, Colts, and Bengals. I think it says more about the Chiefs to me than it does the opponent. Self-inflicted wounds have hurt the Chiefs, but Andy Reid ain't changing any time. Like, that's what you get with Andy Reid. And the Bengals, have not had self-inflicted wounds. They haven't. Like, look at the game against and the 49ers, same situation. They've had a ton of self-inflicted wounds in that game. Safety, you end up with a fourth down. That didn't work out for the 49ers. They decided to kick field goals. They threw 2 interceptions. Like, most of the time in the NFL, you lose games rather than win games. And that's what the Cincinnati Bengals have done the last 3 times that they have played the Kansas City Chiefs. 3 times. Bengals didn't turn it over. Bengals ended up winning a game. That is not a coincidence. So, Chiefs fans, it's not doom and gloom. They tackled poorly. The offensive line played bad. The defense got no pressure. Burrow was in his bag. Jamar Chase is excellent. T. Higgins is excellent. And you lost by 3. And Andy Reid went Andy Reid. That's the positive outlook for me. It really is. Coming up next, were you one of the individuals watching the Big 12 championship game? There was a whole bunch of them. What does that mean for the Big 12 going forward? A monster number for the Big 12 title game. We'll get to that. And Matt Derrick coming up here in this noon hour. Kyle filling in for Fulton, still under the weather. Man, everybody's getting sick, it seems like. Holy cow, we had a bunch of people sick here at the station. Hopefully everybody's doing all right. And I know it's been going around. A couple other people have had kind of the crud is what the Midwest at least uses when it comes to the vernacular for that. We'll get to Matt Derrick coming up here in just a little bit, but the Big 12. The Big 12, people like the Big 12, that or they like really competitive games. Here are the numbers for the Big 12 championship game and the rest of championship Saturday. The American championship game, Tulane and Central Florida, had 2.6 million people watch it. The ACC, Clemson, North Carolina, had 3.4 million watch that game. The Pac-12 Utah USC game, which was a standalone game on Friday night, got 5.9 million. The Big 12, which had K-State and TCU, no blue bloods, nobody, not a USC or a Michigan or a Georgia. K-State TCU had 9.4 million viewers. The Big 10 had Purdue and Michigan, 10.6. And the SEC, LSU Georgia, had 10.8. The LSU Georgia game, I'd imagine, would have been a better number if that game wasn't a butt whooping. But what are the Power 5 conferences? All of these games were on network. All of them were. Fox, ABC, those were the games. Clemson, Power Clemson in the ACC, 3.4 million. USC in the Pac-12 had 5.9, and the USC's leaving to go to the Big Ten. And then you got K-State and TCU. Little old K-State and private school TCU had 9.4. Now, they had the best game. Big Ten, not a surprise. Michigan, national, brand, 10.6. We know the Big 12 is not going to pull numbers like Michigan and Georgia and Bama and LSU. We know that. And then LSU, Georgia got 10.8. The fact that K-State, TCU almost got 10 million viewers is terrific. Those are the only two teams that really are not a blue blood team and a brand name, and they got 10 million people to watch it on network. This tells me a couple things. One, the Big 12's numbers are better, a lot better than what many people think. And two, the second one, network television is huge. You're not on ESPN Plus, you're not on FS1. That's great numbers for the Big 12. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Matt Derrick.
even though you can put a lot of blame on the defense and there's been some deficiencies, Chiefs win with offense. I mean, they win it with Patrick Mahomes and that side of the football. And with that side, hasn't been as crisp against the Bengals as they have against some other teams. Certainly hasn't been as consistent. This was closer. I mean, this was not a game where you could look at it and say that there was a period of time where the Chiefs just shut down. I mean, offensively they was there, but in all three games, the one fatal flaw has been just not taking what is there, and that's just sometimes what you have to do. I mean, I joke about it sometimes, just saying that, hey, the Chiefs have to eat their vegetables sometimes. I mean, when you got Patrick Mahomes, it's easy to just want to push the ball downfield and do that, but sometimes you just take the simple plays in front of you. And against what the Bengals do defensively, when the Chiefs do that, they move the ball. When they don't, they don't. So it starts there with me. But, and also all three of these games, they haven't been able to get Joe Burrow down. Everybody else in the league gets Joe Burrow on the ground. I don't know why the Chiefs can't. And that's the biggest part of their flaws on defense. And, probably that at the end, I mean, I think you have to put it on coaching. I mean, in all three of these games, Chiefs have had some sort of fatal flaw, whether it was the game plan, whether it was consistent play calling. We know the play calling cost them an AFC Championship game. I think it even cost them, depending on who's to blame on that final drive, I think you could certainly pick apart some of the coaching decisions. That, to me, is at least the common thread amongst all three of those losses.
What's the most impactful? Is it Mahomes and the offense not taking what it's there? Is it the pass rush, or is it Andy Reid's decision making?
I mean, inevitably, I think that, because in all three of these games, I mean, there's literally one play goes differently. It changes the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the Chiefs had gotten points before the end of the first half in the AFC Championship game, that game probably comes out differently. There were a handful of plays on Sunday against the Bengals that go another way. I mean, so it's not entirely, to me, down to the coaching. And like I said, I ultimately, I think, finally fall, and I've been struggling with the last couple of days about where you really put it. And I think your question has kind of finally put me to the edge where I say, you win with offense, you have to put it on the offense. And, did the offense do everything that it could and should to win that game? And to me, they didn't. And a big part of it is, once again, the lesson that they were supposed to learn from the Bengals AFC Championship game loss was that sometimes you got to just move chains and take what's there. And ultimately, that's what hurt them again on Sunday.
When it comes to take what's there, that was actually my key number two on Friday when we did our keys to the game. Number one was the pass rush. But we kind of have to expect this now from Andy Reid. The AFC title game, it was 2nd and goal from the 4, and they're throwing it. And then they get sacked. And then it's 3rd and goal. Now you have to throw it, and they fumble it, and they recover it. 2nd and goal from the 4. It's 3rd and 3 from the Bengal 33-yard line, and they throw it. Like, if you gain 2 yards, now it's 4th and 1. But we know, because I was stunned that Andy Reid said this. I thought Adam Teicher asked a great question. He said, well, if it would have just been incomplete, would you have kicked the field goal? And he said, yes. I'm dumbfounded at that. Even I, and probably you, Kyle, everybody, like, we knew they were going to drop 8. You knew that was going to be the case. It's almost just mind blowing how in the games he can't run the ball, and that's not a get rid of Andy Reid. It's one of those things where that's what you got to deal with. That's part of the Andy Reid experience, which is really, really frustrating, considering, I mean, even if they do kick the field goal, Matt, and let's say they make it, it's a tie game with 3:30 to go. Do you think the defense is going to stop Joe Burrow from getting into field goal range?
I mean, that's what they were betting on. And you're right. I mean, that's not a safe bet. And what so perplexes me about that final drive and the final sequence is that, the Chiefs get the ball and there's 8:54 left. And I mean, and most of the time you could probably sit there and think, okay, in a game like this with these two offenses, both these teams are probably going to get the ball a couple more times. I mean, this could be one of those games where it trades back and forth. I mean, we've seen that plenty of times in Chiefs games.
Yep.
But in this one, the Chiefs literally started this drive out looking like they were trying to drain all 8:54 off that clock. It was nothing but short passes to Kelce and runs. and they were doing it. I mean, they were effectively running the
Yeah.
football and getting and running out the clock. I mean, they were letting it tick down. I mean, they weren't waiting until 1 second was left and making it obvious, but they were waiting until under 10 seconds were left on the play clock before they did anything, and it was working. And first down, and I don't know about first down, the first down play. I mean, if it was designed as like a quick pass to the flat to McKinnon, who kind of got held up, and then of course Orlando Brown just gets beat, and then the play blows up. If that was the case, I like that play. I just wouldn't have liked it if as Mahomes is looking downfield and that's where his eyes were going, if trying to push it, that's not what to do. And then on third down, I mean, you need 3 yards. Why are you looking for 15? You look for 4. And it just seems to me that the more and more increasingly you see what other teams do to try and beat the Chiefs late in games, they don't bother with the underneath stuff because they know that the Chiefs in their DNA, they're not going to take it. And until the Chiefs prove that they can do that, no one's going to defend against that. They're always going to drop back and try and take away Kelsey and take away Juju and every deep threat because they know the Chiefs just don't have it in their DNA to take the short stuff. They're always going to look downfield and try and push it.
And I thought Andy Reid showed a little bit of a change when it was third and 7? No, 3rd and 5 near the goal line. And he handed off to Pacheco it was 3rd and 5 at the 8. And he handed off to Pacheco and he scores a touchdown. He gets 8 yards. I'm like, okay, Andy has finally seen it. He's finally understanding. And then 3rd and 3 rolls around and the Bengals, it's like old school poker. The Bengals went with what they thought would happen. And the Chiefs, they scouted the Chiefs well. And the Chiefs went right into their hands with the dropping of 8. Because it's hard to complete a pass with 8 dudes backing up, let alone then you got pressure with just 3 guys. So it's almost like he's almost there when it comes to some of those decision making. Let's go to the offensive line. The Bengals have gotten pressure this year. They haven't gotten to the quarterback as much, but it's still it's not as if, Trey Hendrickson's good. I wouldn't consider him, a Khalil Mack. I wouldn't consider him a Bosa. But yet it wasn't just Hendrickson. It was the other guys who are, like not house name guys that the Chiefs just can't block, it seems like.
Yeah, and that's the really frustrating thing against the Bengals is that, they're consistently getting pressure with only 3 or 4. And if you're getting, Mitchell Schwartz noted this. I mean, he was pretty critical of the Chiefs offensive line and was saying this, that if you're getting pressure with 3, that's just unacceptable. You can't allow that as an offense. And, and I give the Bengals credit. I mean, I think they're able to create that pressure against the Chiefs because they use a lot of different fronts and they do a lot of different things. But and they false, they show a lot of false moves. I mean, even on that last play there we're talking about. I mean, they had a lot of guys on the line of scrimmage looking like maybe they're going to blitz or and they did throw some zero blitzes at the Chiefs. Andy Reid talked about that. But, I mean, just because they show that to you doesn't mean that's what they're going to do. And the Chiefs just fall for it too many times, So, yeah, and the Chiefs, ultimately in this league, you got to be able to win those one-on-one matchups. And if it's just because of injuries, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt with the Joe Thuney injury, and that play in particular, Creed Humphrey was giving support to Nick Allegretti there rather than maybe the other way around, which would be Joe Thuney helping out Orlando. In that case, it was just Orlando on an island by himself. And if he can't consistently win those matchups, that's going to be a problem.
Orlando Brown, I don't think will be a Chief next year. I think they need to find somebody else. I think they need to say, look, he ain't the guy. Or you have to pay him, I mean, honestly, average left tackle pricing. I don't think you can give him a long-term deal now. I think you say, here's a 3-year deal worth X amount of money, take it or leave it. And I'm even debating if that's what you should do.
Yeah, I have no idea. I get really, truly no sense at this point because neither side's really talked about after this year and showed their hand about how they're feeling. But you're right. I mean, as far as performance this year, I mean, you'd have to say the Chiefs would have to be crazy to give Orlando Brown anything close to the deal that he wanted last offseason. I mean, you could probably make the case convincingly that the Chiefs shouldn't even offer what they were offering last offseason.
Oh gosh, no.
So if that's the case, then yeah, I mean, it's hard to see them getting. I mean, it's going to come down eventually to what Orlando wants, and if Orlando wants big time left tackle money, I think he's done a hard job of making that case in Kansas City. Then the question is, hey, do you do the tag again? I mean, that's going to be a pricey one. That's going to be around $20 million, for 1 year of the tag. Is that worth it for one more year of going through this and seeing what happens? It's hard to predict. I mean, I'm not going to rule out anything at this point, but to your main point, which is that has Orlando Brown made the case for a compelling multi-year extension in Kansas City? No, it hasn't been done yet.
And I don't think he's awful. I'm not trying to say, wow,
No.
he's the worst left tackle, but it's a simple case of if you're going to invest a ton of money into somebody, they need to be well above average, borderline top 5. Like if you look at who the Chiefs have invested in, they've invested in Patrick Mahomes. He is obviously top 5. They've invested in Chris Jones. He is obviously top 5. They invested in Frank Clark. Well, that hasn't worked out. And now they're going to save probably, 15, 16 million to the cap next year because they're not going to restructure him like they did last year. He is going to be gone. You can't pay guys monster money if they're just average. So that's why I don't see him being back there. And I think the Kansas City, like Andrew Wiley, I have no problem with what Andrew Wiley has done. Andrew Wiley is making league minimum playing right tackle. Well, I expect if you're going to be league minimum playing right tackle, that you're going to be probably average effort. Do you think he's been average at a right tackle spot?
I mean, I think he probably has been.
Yeah, I do too.
And to your point, exactly. I mean, you can make a case that Andrew Wiley is a credible bargain because of how much money he's making and what he's giving you. And that's what you have to do when you're paying the positions and you're salary cap wise where you're at with some other spots. But you're right. If you're paying your left tackle that kind of money, you need more performance out of it.
We're talking with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. And the defensive side, I've rewatched a whole bunch of clips, obviously. Man, it's really simple that the Chiefs' defensive pass rush didn't get it done. They double-teamed Chris Jones every play. He had no chance. And I'm stunned that other teams don't just do that because that is exactly what the Bengals did. And very few times did anyone else end up affecting the Joe Burrow at any point in time. Like if the Denver Broncos this Sunday don't double team Chris Jones every play, that's coaching malpractice to me.
Yeah, watching what the Bengals did to Chris Jones reminds me of just a lot of what every team's been doing and trying to do to Travis Kelce. And frankly, the Bengals did that to Kelce. I mean, they had the same philosophy. It's like there's two guys that we're not going to let beat us today. It was Kelce and Chris Jones, and they hit and beat those two guys all day long. And yeah, Chris Jones had no room to work. And that's the frustrating part is that when Chris Jones is getting double teamed like that, that means everybody else has a one-on-one matchup. And if you can't beat those one-on-one matchups consistently, and especially when the Bengals are beating on the other side, and sometimes they're beating double teams, what are you doing? And there was a lot of things about the Chiefs' defensive front that confused me on Sunday because I didn't think that they played their usual game in the sense that this has been in their run of getting some sacks of late. They've been playing aggressive. They've been following the Joe Cullen style of getting upfield quickly and trying to impact the quarterback. They played a lot more finesse. I mean, there was a lot more movement and there were twists and stunts and moving around. I mean, instead of just trying to get upfield. And that was the perplexing thing because I just don't think that's the team's strength, especially when Chris Jones is being neutralized. You still got to get upfield, and they just were not doing that against Burrow.
All righty. The game against the Broncos. Maybe this is just the pessimistic side for me, but this screams letdown game for me. This screams trap game because the Broncos offense is awful. And we know in the NFL, if you just let your guard down a little bit, it's going to burn you. The Broncos defense is very good. I think the Broncos defense is a top 5 defense. So I think it will be difficult for the Chiefs to score. But I just hope that the Broncos offense doesn't connect on a few plays. And this game, to me, has a lot of similarities as that Colts game.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, this should be and looks like it's one of two games. You're right. I mean, it's either a letdown game or a slump buster game. I mean, it's going to be one or the other. And there's a lot of reasons why I can see the Chiefs may have the letdown. I mean, certainly that's a disappointing loss. It's a team that they're not going to probably regard highly. This is a game that they were talking about. You know, it was going to be a primetime game. Now all of a sudden, hey, it's an afternoon game and everybody gets home early and you're not, don't have to worry about getting home at 4 a.m. now. I mean, everybody was looking forward to that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to not be looking forward to. Now Andy Reid will not let them do that. I mean, this is probably going to be one of those weeks of practice that the players don't want to remember, because I'm sure they're going to get it beat into them this week. That if you have a letdown, you are going to let the Bengals beat you twice. So I imagine this is going to be a pretty fierce week from that standpoint. But ultimately, I mean, the Chiefs are just so much better than the Broncos, and the Broncos are broken, I mean, especially offensively. So, I mean, if the Broncos score 20 points, they're probably going to win the game, because there's just no reason why the Broncos should score 20 against anybody right now. Just the question is, I mean, what are the Chiefs going to do? I mean, and it could very well end up being a sloppy game like the Colts. And if it ends up with that way, the Broncos can beat them. But on paper, there's just no reason why these two teams should be in the same ballpark.
How important is it for the Chiefs defense to limit the Broncos to 17 points? And what's funny is if the Broncos score 17 points, that would be their most points scored in 5 games when they beat the Jaguars 21-17. In fact, the Broncos have scored 20 or more points one time. Like, this is a huge indictment on the Chiefs defense if they do allow the Broncos to get into the 20s.
Yeah, and and I've had the game that's been going through my mind all week has been the Chiefs and the Bears a couple of years ago in Chicago, when that was just one of the most boring, nondescript games I think I've ever watched. But that was the exact same thing. It was against an offense that couldn't accomplish anything. A Chiefs defense that was playing really well. A Chiefs offense always thinking that could pick their number back in 2019. And what was like 24-9 or something like that. I mean, I this is the way I see the Chiefs winning this game too, which is just plodding offensively, not doing anything too fancy, not showing too much. They just go out there and put their number. Defensively, they dominate the Broncos. Don't let them do much. Don't try and run up and down the field. Just eke out the win. And I can see that being a 2-score game and a win kind of like that. Because I just don't. I mean, if you don't give the Broncos any momentum, they're not going to create momentum on their own.
All righty. You're going to pick the Chiefs to win, so I don't got to worry about that for my final 2. 2 for the road. All right, Matt. You're a Mizzou guy. I got to know, do you deep down think the Tigers were ducking the Jayhawks for a bowl game?
I do not. I mean, I truly believe that it was a case that Mizzou did not want to play in the Liberty Bowl, because the Liberty Bowl was just a bad time. It was the same day as Kentucky basketball at home, and getting anybody to Columbia on December 28th is impossible already. Last year they had to play on the same day as bragging rights against Illinois, and they didn't want to play that bowl game either. And they weren't ducking. I think it was Navy we played in that game. They weren't ducking them.
Man, they should have. No, you don't ever play a service academy. That's a legit duck. Don't play that one.
But they just, yeah. So I think, hey, I think it's a different game. I think they would. But playing in Tampa, taking the kids down there, I'd rather do that than go to Memphis. So I'm okay with that.
Should Missouri and KU play every year in football?
I'd love it. I mean, I'm already getting hyped for basketball this weekend. So I'm trying to focus on Broncos, but I've got MU-KU on my mind right now. I don't know about you, but that's all I'm thinking about this week.
That's gonna be a dandy, I think, because that could be fun. Because Mizzou Do they have a midweek game? I don't follow Mizzou athletics that much now that they're in the SEC. Do they have a midweek game, or their next game is Saturday?
I think it is Saturday.
Okay, well then KU could give them their first loss of the year. Then that makes it even more
They
exciting.
could.
So, Matt,
And
go ahead.
one quick thing about the Liberty Bowl that haven't heard a lot of people mention though is that I don't want Memphis to get that game. I mean, if they're going to play again, I want it to be in Lawrence or Columbia. I don't want that game in Memphis. Don't let them get the glory.
I just want it to happen. I don't care where it is.
I care a little bit about where.
Yeah, I just want them to play because I've said this from a long time. The players miss it more. I don't care about the fans, man. The players playing that game's awesome. Matt, we appreciate the times, my friend. Have yourself a great rest of the week.
You too, Jake. Take care, everybody.
That is Matt Derrick. It is hour number 2 here on Mic'd Up. Thank you so much for joining us. Jake Levon along with Kyle Manthe filling in for Fulton Caster. Fulton's still a little bit under the weather, so hopefully you are taking care of yourself out there. Doesn't hurt to get a little bit of vitamin C in you. Try to fight off the stuff that's going around. No question about that. But we hope Fulton ends up back with us tomorrow. We will get to a lot more coming up tomorrow. We're going to hear from Dan Lucero. Will be joining us coming up at the bottom of the hour. We will also get to more of Odds Makers discussion. So that'll be coming up here on this edition of Mic'd Up. There is a lot, and I mean a lot of talk from the Kansas City Chiefs. Everyone who listens to this show knows I am very pro trash talk. I like trash talk. I think it's good. I think emotion can be a good thing. I really, really do. But just like always, there are certain guidelines. I don't want to use unwritten rules because that just gets everybody upset. But there are certain guidelines that I think a trash talker needs to follow. I do. One, you don't talk about families. Don't talk about kids. Don't talk about wives. That's crossing the line. I don't think you can do that. If you do that, then I think you are setting yourself up for maybe some trouble down the way. But I have no problem about trash talk. You know the old adage, it's not trash talk if you can prove it or do it. You know, it's not called bragging if you do it. So I think it's pretty simple, right? Well, Justin Reed, earlier in the week of the Chiefs-Bengals game, said that he was going to lock up Hayden Hurst. You know, he's going to get her done. Well, we know that on the technical side of things, did you know, Kyle, that Justin Reed actually did what he was saying when it comes to defending the pass? Hayden Hurst had a couple of receptions, but they were not on Justin Reed. In fact, Pro Football Focus, whether you agree or disagree with them, their metric had Justin Reed very good against the pass. Okay. Here's the thing. That type of minutia doesn't work with trash talk, especially when your defense gets his ass kicked. Justin Reed tweeted out earlier today, unpopular opinion, we lost, but I was still right. Cry about it. You can't talk trash after your defense performed the way it did. And I don't give a damn how good you were. You can't double down if you're Justin Reed. The Bengals had 6 incompletions. Joe Burrow's passer rating was 126.6. He went 25 of 31 for almost 300 yards. Oh, and by the way, every single one of the Chiefs' defensive players got big boyed and they didn't tackle. You cannot talk trash when Samaje Perine stiff-armed you all the way into the ground and he looked like he used your head as a basketball. I mean, he just mushed him to the ground and just smushed it, and his head bounced up like a basketball. You have no room to talk. None. Zero. Zip. Zilch. You have nothing to talk about. You didn't force a turnover. You didn't get a sack. You did nothing. And you can't come back and say, I was right. That's not how trash talk works. I don't care if what you said specifically, by the way, Hayden Hurst went out of the game because of an injury, so he didn't even get to play the whole game. Defense is, no question about it, a team aspect of it. And when you spout off, and you didn't make any tackles, by the way, Justin Reed. That didn't happen. You whiffed multiple times. You can't double down here. You just can't. That's kind of like, I don't know, Kav, you saw it where it was Justin Watson, I believe. Catches a first down, like a pretty decent game. I want to say like 16, 17 yards. And he got popped real hard. And the defender stared at the sidelines and gave like a flexing motion, like, yeah, I just popped him. You gave up 17 yards, man. Like, come on. If he dislodged it, so be it. I have no problem with that. Flex your muscles. Do the small little, where the cool thing to do now is to let people know how small and little they are, where they take their hand, like, and you say, like, oh yeah, put it low to the ground. Like, he's too little, too little. Do that. I got no problem with that. You give up a first down on, which was, I believe, a key play. You can't be talking like that. Same thing. What are you doing, Justin Reed? And this is starting to have some reverb a little bit. Mitchell Schwartz, all-pro, right tackle, now food connoisseur, all-pro. Mitchell Schwartz was awesome. I think Mitchell Schwartz should be a Chiefs Ring of Honor guy. I do. Mitchell Schwartz says this. Can't believe it. And at 8 a.m., when he's either in the facility or on the way to the facility, I get being at home bored, your mind wanders. But you're in the place where everybody tells you not to do stuff like this, and you go and do it again. They are not going to be happy with him. The Chiefs in the media, if you have not figured out, is very bland. Except for this last week. Justin Reed popped off a little bit. I got no problem with that. You just better be able to back it up. And when you're good. Heck, you can pop off this week. But that's not what the Chiefs do. Justin Reed, first-year guy. The Chiefs don't do this. And that's why you hear Mitchell Schwartz, who's been a part of the culture, been in that locker room, when he says they are not going to be happy with him. Frank Clark talked a lot of smack in the game, and he even said so after the game. And he admitted, hey, got to do better, got to find a way to get it done. That's in like Frank Clark's DNA. It just is. But you got to do something, man. You can't pop off that much and make 0 plays in the game against the Bengals. 0 plays. Frank Clark had 3 tackles. Not an impact whatsoever. You can't do that if you're Frank Clark. You can't. And that's what's frustrating about the Chiefs and the way that they handle themselves after this loss. This is something that I didn't expect. And I'm imagining the players will address that because that's not what they do. That is not how the Chiefs' standard operating procedure goes. I also want to get to something that was so blatant. And I hadn't seen it that obvious before in the NFL. You saw it a lot in the college world. But when Jesse Bates fell down because the Bengals were going to get a sub in late, I thought that was interesting. And Louis Riddick of ESPN, who I like Louis Riddick. I think Louis Riddick does a nice job. And I thought, he said something about the Chiefs game and about Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates went into the facility on Monday, and he said, "Hey, this is what leaders do." And I said, "What are your thoughts on Bates faking the injury? I'm curious from a former player's perspective in the NFL. Is that good gamesmanship? Is that poor form? Should that be allowed in the NFL?" And Louis Riddick responded to me on Twitter. He said, "Not a fan of that kind of BS, but not the first or last time I've seen it." Which is, I think, everybody agrees with. You're not a fan of it. You think that's poor form, but it happens, and it will continue to happen. I would love to know if the NFL will have some type of repercussion for that. Because in college, you've seen that so much recently that they have a committee where after the game, they look at the film. And if it looks as though it was pretty obvious that they're fine, and then they just kind of fall down to save time, mostly it's on defense, when they're tired, that type of thing. Well, you knew that he wasn't hurt because he was just standing there waiting, sees it, and then falls down. Now, some people say, well, Jake, what if he did have a cramp? You don't have cramps like that at that specific time. And normally there's a little bit of lead on. And in college, you can get in trouble for that. They look at the film and they say, wow, some people have even said, just go down. And then they fall down. They have to stop the clock. That's what happened here. One play later, Jesse Bates was back on the field. Full bore, running fine. You don't need to be Columbo or, Sherlock Holmes or what's his name, David Caruso on CSI Miami to figure out that. I think that's, to me, you ready for this? We watch the World Cup, right? That's some soccer flopping crap right there from Jesse Bates. I lost respect now for Jesse Bates. Do I think it's smart? Yes, I do. In fact, Jesse Bates shouldn't be the one doing it. It should be a terrible player. Jesse Bates is maybe their second best defensive player. He shouldn't be the one going out in a key play. It's because all the other guys are too stupid to realize, oh, maybe one of us should take a dive. Smart by Jesse Bates. Very smart. They might have saved a 5 yards, saved a penalty. But that tells me, you know what? Jesse Bates is willing to take a dive. And if we are going to mock the soccer players of the world who barely get touched and roll around on the ground and pull a Neymar or whatever you want to call it, like they get hit in the shoulder and they're like, oh, my eye. Oh, gosh. Well, what are they doing? They're trying to draw a penalty. That's smart, right? That is smart. Hey, you know what? If you take a dive, same thing happened in the Washburn Northeastern game. End of the game. It's tied up at 78. 3-pointer by Northeastern State. Kid takes a dive. He just falls to the ground. They called a foul on Washburn. It was not a foul. Only two people know if it was a foul. The Washburn guy and the Northeastern guy. Only two people. You knew it was a dive. You knew he fell to the ground. He flopped. And it worked. Is that smart? Yes, that's very smart. I get why soccer players dive. I do. It ain't hard to understand. You take a dive, maybe it works, and you get a penalty kick. But it also makes me, just me personally, it makes me respect you a little bit less. This is where I come from, the Bill Self mentality. That's soft. That's so soft. And it shouldn't be part of the game. I think that's going, the chicken you-know-what out of the game. I get it. It works. It worked. Doesn't look like he's going to get in any trouble, but I lost a little respect for Jesse Bates. That's just me. Maybe others see differently. So the next time you complain about a soccer player rolling around on the ground trying to get a penalty, what's the difference with what Jesse Bates did? In fact, honestly, Jesse Bates, it's actually smarter for Jesse Bates because it worked. In soccer, that's so prevalent that maybe it doesn't work. But I thought that was interesting and see what the outcome would be because of that. That's just me. That's just me. We'll get a timeout. Coming up next, everyone loves the list, and then we're going to talk with Dan Lucero. A Tuesday. It is a very simple one. Kyle was the one who thought of this because we are nearing the Christmas holiday, Boxing Day, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever. And I love this. I love a big giant tin of popcorn. I love popcorn. I think popcorn is fantastic. So we are going with your favorite kinds of popcorn. All right? Very simple, very easy. Favorite types of popcorn. And you can be one of those generic, regular popcorn people. And maybe you are, Kyle. And if so, I am going to make fun of you. But give me your top 4 flavors of popcorn.
Number 4 for me, when I get those holiday themed, those big tins of popcorns, the
Yep.
one I'm gonna leave, I'll let other people eat it. That'll be the caramel popcorn. I'll leave that to the side. I'll still eat it, but not my favorite. So I'll let everyone else eat that.
I'm with you. Um, I am not a huge caramel corn guy. I'm not. I don't know if it's because it's sticky and it's all clumped together. I'm not a huge caramel corn type of guy. My number 4 is a style of popcorn. Kettle corn. I like kettle corn. It's got a different little flavor. Um, it's simple, easy. Kettle corn, number 4.
That's my number 3, kettle
Okay.
corn. It's not offensive. It's very easy to eat.
Yes.
Just very it's not necessarily bland, but it's very easy to eat. You can get carried away with it sometimes. Number 3 for me.
Alrighty. My number 3 popcorn. White cheddar. Whew. Man, I love me some white cheddar popcorn. Oh, it's so good. I don't know the brand, but I get it in the black bag. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen it? You know, I can house a whole big, giant, like potato chip bag size of white cheddar popcorn. It's terrific. I love it.
Number 2, I'll go salt and vinegar popcorn.
Salt and vinegar. I don't think I've ever had that. I'm not a huge fan of the salt and vinegar chips, which is why I don't think I've ever had salt and vinegar popcorn.
Sometimes just popcorn without any butter on it and just a bunch of salt. Sometimes that's what you need.
Okay,
It's
I can
really
see
good.
that. I can see that. Yeah. My number 2 is butter. And I don't want just like, if I could be more specific, they say food tastes better if somebody else prepares it for you. Movie theater butter out of the probably the disgusting dispenser where you push the button and just a stream of just butter comes out. That's amazing. Like movie butter popcorn. That's excellent. I wish I had one of those in my house.
Sorry, that's going to have to be my number 1. You can call me basic if you want.
Is it regular popcorn?
Yep, it's
Is it
regular
really?
popcorn.
Like no butter at all.
Nope.
Just generic popcorn, Kyle. Really?
Mm-hmm.
I need something. That's why number 1 for me, in the big giant tins, Topsies, the cheese. Oh my gosh, I could eat that cheese popcorn forever and ever. If you don't know, if anybody out there listening, if you want to get me a gift, just get me a big giant tin of cheese popcorn. It'd be fantastic. Coming up next, Dan Lucero will join us for a little crosstalk. Second on mic'd up. Jake Law, Kyle Mackey with you. Kyle filling in for Fulton Caster on this Tuesday. We'll get to a little odds makers coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. But right now, we're going to talk with 580 Sports Talks. Dan Lucero joining us. Dan,
Yes.
our Everyone Loves the List topic today. I love the big tins of popcorn. I think they're delicious. Like, if you don't
Sure.
know what to get me, like, you're like,
Get you a
I
big popcorn.
just give me a giant tin popcorn, no caramel.
You don't like the caramel?
No.
Too sticky?
Too sticky, too clumped. It doesn't fit my eye.
Okay, more for me then.
Well, no. Don't give me the caramel. Fill it with something else.
Okay.
Like go like double butter or double cheese.
Gotcha.
That
gotcha.
type of thing.
Okay.
But give me your top popcorn just flavors. Like your brand, like from our YouTube up on Sports on 580. Does Cracker Jack count? Is that Cracker Jack?
Yeah,
Cracker
kinda
Jack? Is that
like-
more of a
yeah,
snack?
Is that more of a snack?
But popcorn, I guess.
But
is a
popcorn,
snack.
Yeah.
is a snack.
Yeah, popcorn is a
popcorn.
snack.
Okay, so
Okay,
so
so
no, like,
sure,
well, no,
like
like,
Cracker Jack, like that would be like it's caramel popcorn, basically.
But they
isn't
got-
it?
they got nuts in there, don't they?
Yeah.
Does the
Does
nut
the nut
make
it
like its own entity, like a hot dog or a cheeseburger?
No, like it's still popcorn in the Cracker Jack. Like you like the popcorn flavor that
Yeah.
comes in a cracker. You can say that. I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another one,
caramel.
caramel. I'm not a caramel guy, so give me your
Man, I
Your top.
think you know that black bag of white cheddar popcorn.
black bag white cheddar popcorn.
Yeah,
that's what that's number 3 for me.
I don't even know the brand. Honestly, I couldn't give you the brand
I'm gonna
off,
Google it.
off the top of my head. I could not. I just know, oh, hey, that's the black bag of white cheddar popcorn. That stuff is really good. I'm going to buy it, and then I'm going to try not to touch it with my hands and just pour it into my mouth.
Smart food.
Smart food.
Yeah, smart food. It's a smart food black bag.
Yeah. Shout
No,
out,
it's so good.
shout out to Smart Food. Yeah.
I can eat an entire like potato chip sized bag of that stuff. And I don't know why, but something happened. This was like a year ago. I saw something on social media. Apparently, 2 of my favorite things are just awful for you. Apparently, popcorn is awful for you, like terrible. Same thing,
And I kind of get it.
But
Donuts.
donuts
So bad,
for you.
You don't say.
So
So
bad,
bad
for
for
you.
you.
I
didn't. Popcorn's on the list. There's like things that are absolutely terrible for you, and like popcorn and donuts are like 1 and 2.
I buy it.
I do. I still buy it all the time.
It's
It's so good.
Man,
Man,
it's
so good. Dan, you were in Jerry World
Yes, it was.
for a football game. Did you see the number?
The TV number?
The TV number?
Pretty big number.
Isn't that incredible? 9.5. I thought nobody wanted to watch the rest of the Big 12, Dan. I thought it was just, Oklahoma
Yeah.
and Texas.
Only want to watch Oklahoma and Texas. Yeah, the other 8 schools, just no passionate fans. They don't care about sports.
USC Utah drew 4 million on a Friday night in prime time.
Yeah, on a major network.
A lot of the media people think that the Pac-12 is going to be just fine. They're going to get the same TV deal as the Big 12. I just don't see that happening. And then this is to me further proof. And was it because it was a blowout? And it wasn't really a blowout till like honestly the fourth quarter. I mean, it was
Yeah.
still competitive in the third quarter.
Yeah, I think there's just not the broader nationwide familiarity with the Pac-12 because they play in West Coast time.
Yeah.
They're not always in the primo time slots. They get overshadowed by the SEC and the Big Ten. And with the Big 12, Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, has made this point repeatedly when we have him on 580 Sports Talk, that there is a level of devotion and passion for their teams in the Big 12, like among the land grant schools, K-State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State,
Texas Tech,
you know, there's a zeal for that people will watch them. Okay, maybe, Joe casual sports fan isn't going to say, oh, heck yeah, I can't wait to stay home on this Saturday and watch Texas Tech. But like a lot of people affiliated with those schools are going to watch their team play. So that sort of makes up for the idea that the casual college football consumer may not be as familiar with the kind of football they're playing in Manhattan or Stillwater or wherever it is.
Your big takeaway from the game. That was that you've been to Bill Snyder Family Stadium,
Mhm.
I think every game but one, maybe. And I heard that it was louder at Jerry World than it was at Bill Snyder Family Stadium.
Yeah.
I heard it was jacked down there.
No, it was a great crowd. I mean, 20,000 more people than you get.
Yeah, exactly. But some of those are TCU fans, whereas
Mhm.
at the Bill, 98% of them are K-State.
It's tough to tell when you're behind the glass of a press box, but you can also really tell when the atmosphere is good, and that was a great atmosphere. Both sides brought it.
Mhm.
K-State had a tremendous contingent, and they made a lot of noise. Bill Snyder Family Stadium, it's not a secret around here to anybody who's been there, but I tell people who don't know, that place gets loud.
Yeah.
That joint can get to be jumping.
Especially now when you got the Shamrock Zone and the two big giant video boards.
Oh,
yeah.
The sound goes down to the field a little bit.
They've done a
more.
nice job with that.
They have. So yeah, it was a super atmosphere, no question about it. Two passionate fan bases, excited to be there. Excited for their teams to have that opportunity. The big takeaway for me for Kansas State, and I expounded on this a little bit on yesterday's 580 Sports Talk. A lot of schools talk about family with their football programs, but Kansas State really walks the walk. And there are so many different ways throughout this season and even in that game that you see some of those family values of not just friendship is kind of a basic way to say it, but like if Adrian Martinez and Will Howard weren't sock tight, weren't best of friends, didn't develop the relationship they developed, this season could have gone a very different way once Howard became the starting quarterback or once Howard had to take over for Adrian Martinez. You see the value of selflessness. Keenan Garber is playing wide receiver all year long. Says, hey, if you need me, move me to defense. 3 weeks later, he's playing significant snaps on the outside in the Big 12 championship game against that passing attack and those wide receivers.
They're down to their fourth-string safety.
You really feel the tightness, the close-knitness of this football team. And when Ty Zentner looks into the camera and the first thing he says is, I die for this team. And that's the kicker saying that, you really get the sense that that's another guy who took over for not just a teammate, but a friend in Chris Tennant. Those things can be awkward. Those things can spill over and make the locker room a difficult place. You've been in a football locker room. You know that there's jealousy. That's a human emotion. You know that there can be frustration, and you know that those things can spill over from certain guys and make for a bit of a toxic environment. That just never happened. Kansas State's locker room, Kansas State's team spirit is so good. Their culture right now is so good. And you saw examples of that throughout the season, throughout the Big 12 championship game, and I really believe that's a big part of the reason why they're the champions.
That starts with Chris Kleiman.
Yes, it does.
Because what Kleiman has brought to this team from North Dakota State, that's the same atmosphere from North Dakota State. And this is my favorite thing about Chris Kleiman. It's not my team. It's your team. Don't ever, he goes, I will never, ever say my team. It is the players' team. Simple as that. I think he's done a fantastic job. And I asked this to Kyle yesterday. Over, under the Sugar Bowl on a new contract for Chris Kleiman.
I suspect something gets done sooner than the Sugar Bowl.
When Lance Leipold signed a $5 million deal, I said the first person who's excited the most is Chris Kleiman.
Yeah.
And the guy who's probably going, damn, I guess it was going to happen, so might as well do it now, is Gene Taylor. Like, you got to do it. Like, you just won a Big 12 title. You won 10 games. And the guy across the street just won 6 games, and now he's getting paid $5 million. By the way, remember when everyone's like, we don't have any money. What are we going to do? Name, image, and likeness.
That's the going rate.
Yeah, it is. You got to pay $5 million now for a head coach who's a winner.
Yeah, that's where it starts. I mean, that's where it starts. Any school can come up with $5 million for a head coach. Colorado came up with $5 million for Dion.
And they didn't even have it, and their AD was like, we don't got it right now, but we're going to get it.
Be interesting to see where. Apparently, college sports runs on like crypto. It's all everybody's a lot of NIL money is like on the blockchain.
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
I thought it was fantastic, and what did you get any update? Do you have any update on Malik Knowles?
It sounded like he went on. He was on either his or somebody else's IG live after the game,
okay,
and said he wasn't going to miss the Sugar Bowl. And I believe Chris Kleiman said that both him and Echo Boydo, like if they had to play in the next 2 weeks, that'd be iffy.
He'll play for a month.
But given a month, they expect them to be ready.
What also makes it interesting is Adrian Martinez will be ready in a month.
Yeah, and this team has talked a lot about, Will Howard has talked a lot about, like, we want to get Adrian Martinez a bowl game. Yeah, he never played in a bowl game at Nebraska. They want to give him that opportunity. That's how much he means to them as a leader, even just in his 1 year there. So, yes, if Adrian Martinez can play, he's going to see time. He's not going to start, but they're going to put him in that game because that's something that, A, he's worked hard for in his college career, and B, his teammates want to reward him with, even the guy who's starting ahead of him right now.
Alrighty, we'll move to the Chiefs. You only get one, okay? One. Bigger issue against good teams because the Chiefs are so talented and so well coached. They clobber the crappy teams. They don't have to play good against the crappy teams. Like, they don't have to play good against the Raiders or even the Chargers or the Jags or the Rams or even the game. You know, they didn't have to play good. But against the good teams, I mean, the two best teams that they played this year, unless you count San Francisco, maybe, are the Bills and the Bengals, and they lost them both. So, what is your biggest concern that you think is addressable, is changeable?
That the defense doesn't make a big play to go and win a game. We're going to expound upon this on 580 Sports Talk today, so I don't want to give away the store here, but just be tuning in at 3 o'clock. Close games this season. Chiefs playing quite a few of them. Very often, the defense has come up small when asked to hold a lead or to try and hang on to a game in the final minutes. And it's been a variety of different things. But the fact of the matter is, in the Cincinnati game, when they needed somebody to go make a play on defense, Jermaine Pratt ripped the ball out of Travis Kelce's hands, and Joseph Osai had a no-quit on the play sack coming up from behind Patrick Mahomes. If Mahomes has a millisecond more time, that's a 20-yard gain down the field. He's got guys breaking open. He sees them. That's why he didn't take off to run. He is setting up to throw, and he doesn't know Osai is army crawling to go and get him. That's an effort play. That's a tremendous effort play by Joseph Osai. The Chiefs have not made those effort plays, those desire plays, those toughness plays, those want-to plays on defense. And the times you can think about them making them in a big game, it's the same guy. It's Chris Jones.
I will say this. One play that was 7 points. It was the Carlos Dunlap play.
Yes.
That was one.
That was a big-time play.
That was one of them.
You got to make them in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, in the fourth quarter. On a game-ending drive. And if you think about it, just trying to think off the top of my head, the Chargers, and you get to stop there. Mahomes had to come back and get the win, I mean, there are a handful of games where they've made a couple plays, but
and let's be honest,
it's more against bad teams. It's more like the Raiders, man. Raiders stink.
Yeah, the Raiders have a lot of weapons, and the Chiefs deserve. I mean, they kept Josh Jacobs. They kept him out of the end zone on the 2-point conversion, and then they got the 4th-and-1 stop at the end of that game. Like, hey, full credit to the defense. They needed to stop in that game, and they came up with it. But like, they needed to stop against the they needed to stop against the Chargers. They didn't get it. Mahomes had to bail them out. They needed to stop against the Bills. They didn't get it. They needed to stop against the Colts. They didn't get it. They needed to stop against the Bengals. 3rd and 6, 3rd and 11. Didn't get it either time. Somebody on that defense has to take ownership and say, I'm making a play. Whether I got to rip the ball out of somebody's hands, or I got to go get a deflection and pick a pass off, or I'm going to go make a 3rd down sack. It can't just be Chris Jones. He's been there in those situations. He had the sack in the overtime that all but ended the Titans game. He had the sack of Justin Herbert that all but ended that Charger game after Mahomes led the game winner. It's been him. He's a great player, but it's got to be somebody else. You just have to go make a winning play. And I think the defense feels like, well, Mahomes will bail us out.
Do you think they have that guy?
Do you think Jermaine Pratt is that guy? He was on Sunday.
That's true. That's a good point.
It's an old cliche to the point where it's even the title of a 2 Chainz album. The play don't care who makes it. It's there to be made. Somebody's going to make it.
See, my biggest issue, it's not changeable. You there's nothing you can do about it. It's Andy Reid's decision making at the end of the game. At the end of games, like their last 4 losses, to me, all entail absolutely terrible decisions by Andy Reid. 3rd and 3. One, you should have ran it, because if I knew they were dropping 8, Andy Reid should. And number 2, he even said on Monday in the press conference yesterday, well, if it was incomplete, we were still going to kick the field goal. There's 3:30 left to go in the game.
Yeah,
They're easily going to kick the field goal. Same thing happened in the game against the Colts.
yeah, that was a Colts game. Yeah,
He called a fake field goal, and then the next time he said, "Oh yeah, let's kick the field goal." And at that it was Amendola at that time. I don't know.
yeah, it was Amendola.
I mean, he misses it.
Well, even in
Like
even
just bad. And then AFC title game, second and goal at the 4-yard line. At the 4-yard line, you're down 3. Second and goal at 4. Man, run it twice on 2nd and 3rd. Choose up more clock. That way, if you do kick the field, because if you do kick the field goal on 4th and 3, okay, it's at least tied. But now Joe Burrow doesn't have time to go down there and win the game. Instead, you kick it with no time expiring. It's just, to me, so many bad decisions by Andy Reid.
and even in the Vegas game, they punted on 4th and 3 from plus territory
Yeah.
in that game. Gave the ball
Like,
back to
but
Vegas
you're-
and gave him a chance to
You're
go
not
with
going to
it.
address it, are you? Like that is who he is. You
Yeah,
just
that's
have
baked in.
you got to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And he's not the only coach in the NFL who would have made those decisions, but your decision-making calculus is different when you have the best football player in the world, which the Chiefs do.
baseball order meetings going on right now. Okay, I got to ask you a baseball question. Sure, you're a baseball guy. Are the Royals in at all on anybody? Like anybody? Like just I don't want them to sign anybody at this point. I just want something to be like, hey, the Royals are in on
The Royals have kicked the tires
Yeah.
on Brandon Nimmo
yeah,
or
or
whoever.
just and he can even be terrible. He can be like
The Royals have expressed interest in Taiwan Walker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
just
I get
something.
it.
There's nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's not because John Sherman doesn't have the money. Just keep that in mind. Just everybody who is a baseball fan, just be aware. We have been brainwashed over the course of like what else the shorthand the Moneyball era to believe that there's just nothing these poor small market franchises can do. They all have the money. Every single one of them. has
Everyone
the
does,
money.
but it is easier if you are the Mets.
Yeah. Oh, it's easier.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
also
easier.
Yeah. You're not. Don't cry poor and tell me, well, that's why we couldn't add a starting pitcher. No, like the Royals need a starting pitcher. Like bring back Zach Greinke. Yeah, wonderful. You're still like 2 quality
Yeah.
starting pitchers short of a
No,
good major, maybe 3.
I think they have to bring back Zach Greinke. I think they have to.
Yeah, I think they
Like,
do.
he was their second best pitcher, and he's 48 years old, I believe, like nearing JD
Man,
Boyer
he's not
territory.
that old.
But he still threw. He had an ERA of
He's younger than me, man. Come on. No, he's not.
He's like 38, man.
Yeah, he does. He's got a couple years.
Am I
on him.
older than Greinke? I don't know. I have to look that up.
You're right. Yeah, he debuted while I was in college.
Yeah.
He won the Cy
He's old,
Young when I was out of
But
college.
he's so good. Like you have to have him. You have to
Yeah.
have him. Are your Rockies kicking the tires on anybody? You're like the Royals.
Their name did come up with Cody Bellinger.
Okay.
I do that. He hasn't hit a lick in 3 years, but
Hey.
he's still better than the bums we've been running out there in center field the last 3 years,
That is the truth.
even with one arm.
Alrighty, Dan. I'll be looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say 3 o'clock about the defense. Because that's so true.
Well, they are having trouble closing, but it isn't just the defense that's falling short in that department. Stay tuned. 3 o'clock.
yeah,
Base
no,
Sports.
I'm with you there. Honestly, just trying to think, like the Chargers game was the one game where they came back. I don't want to say just the one game because they were down double figures against the Raiders. Came in,
Mhm.
but you're
Yeah.
talking about at the end of the game.
The end of the game.
The end of the game.
Winning time.
Yeah. Coming up, we'll get to the Chiefs' issues for 23. Are they the same as 22? Plus odds makers here on Mike Up.
It is the final hour here on Mic'd Up for this Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Jacob Vaughn along with Kyle Manthe running the show, filling in for Fulton Caster, who is under the weather for today. We hope to get Fulton back tomorrow. As always, let us know what's on your mind with the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. Outside of Topeka, 785-272-9429. Love to get your thoughts on this Tuesday. Check us out on Twitter at Sports on 580. That's Sports on 580. Then you can go to our YouTube page. You can check us out on YouTube. Go to Sports on 580 in the search function. Then it'll pop up. Click on it. Click the subscribe. Click the like. Check out all of our videos from Chiefs, KU, K-State, all of that that you can hear and you can watch on our YouTube page. Very simple, very easy. We'll get to a little odds makers coming up here in a little bit. We'll also get back to the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, they kind of are the Denny Green press conference, you know, and his famous rant. We are who we thought they were. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. If you really think about it, the last 2 years, we are who they thought we were. Yeah, very simple. But going into this year, going into 2022, and I keep this readily available on our 2022 Chiefs headlines going into training camp. And we might change that going into the off season. You know, when the tampering period starts, right? But this is what we were wondering. All right, number 5 headline: Andy Reid and how the offense will operate. It was gonna be different this year. No Tyreek Hill, a couple different guys. We knew it was gonna be different. Number 4 was the Chiefs' offensive line. Can they be more dominant? Number 3, wide receivers and how do they respond? Number 2, how's the rookie secondary going to be? And the number 1 is the pass rush. Of the 5, I think you can say overall that 3 of them have now become almost a non-issue. Right? Rookie cornerbacks. Damn, they've been good. McDuffie was pretty good. Real soft DPI there. Low key. That was a huge play. With the interception, the run back. I mean, that was a monster play early on. We'd be talking more about that if that play occurred in the fourth quarter. But they've been good. They really have. So I think that one for the future, that's not going to be on the list next year for the off season. All right. I'm talking about season's over, Super Bowl ends. What's the list there? Because that list is different than what the list will be going into training camp. So that's Chiefs rookies, secondaries, and all that, not an issue anymore. Wide receivers. I don't want to say anybody can do it. But, I mean, it's not as if Juju, because he's been hurt, and, man, he got hit again hard. He did come back into the game. But I don't think Juju's going to be back. I don't think McCall Hardman's going to be back. We know Sky Moore. We know Kadarius Toney. We know MVS. And MVS is going to go full MVS where you go, geez, dude, how can you drop that to? Man, you catch that thing? That was an incredible catch. Like, that might be a certainty now. MVS is going to drop a pass that no question should have been caught, but then he's going to make a catch where you just go, damn. I don't know how he did it. Remember the one-handed catch he had against the Rams And it was the Rams? Yeah, and then the catch that he had in the end zone against the Bengals. I mean, you got to catch that one. But more than likely, with Mahomes and Reed, and you still got an effective Travis Kelce, the wide receiver is going to be fine. Andy Reid and how the offense will operate. Now, if you want to say on a macro level, yes, the offense is not going to have an issue. It's going to put up points. I mean, they lost Tyreek Hill, who he will be the offensive player of the year. I think the offensive player of the year, which is not a quarterback, that goes to it should just be the MVP, who's the best quarterback, offensive player of the year, best player, not quarterback. Well, the best player, not quarterback right now is either Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson. Okay? You lost the offensive player of the year and you're still leading the NFL in scoring. Okay? So Andy Reid and how the offense will operate, probably don't have to worry about that. Now, if you want to talk about a micro level, how the offense does against the good teams, the Bengals, the Bills, like those are the two best teams that they faced this year. They've lost them both. And in those two games, the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm going to double check to make sure that I get this right. In the games against the Bengals and the Bills, they scored 20 against the Bills, and they scored 24 against the Bengals. Against everybody else, you're scoring 29, 27, 44, 30, 41, 27, 44. I mean, you're cooking. Overall, it's good, but the teams that you need to be really good at, you scored 24 and 20, and you've turned it over 3 times. Whereas the Bills had 1 turnover in that game, right? Josh Allen threw that interception, correct? Am I remembering that correctly? No, he threw 2 interceptions. Was it an interception? No, it was a fumble. Beg your pardon. He didn't throw an interception against the Chiefs. He threw for 329 yards and 0 interceptions. And they did have 1 fumble. Yeah, they did. The Bills had 1 fumble, and that was near the goal line when they were about ready to score. You got to be able to score. So, but the point I'm trying to make here is that we have two big areas that we're concerned. Top 5 headlines. One of them didn't involve the team. It was Andy Reid. So we've got the 4 biggest headlines going into the year were the pass rush, the O-line, the corners, and the wide receivers. You've got 2 of those that you feel like you're going to be all right. But the same problems that the Chiefs had this year, going into the offseason this year, in March, in April, are going to be the same issues that they're going to have going into next year. They did not solve the issues to me at all. That's the pass rush. And it's the left tackle and the right tackle spot. I don't think Andrew Wiley has been awful. I think Andrew Wiley has been serviceable. Is he going to get beat every game a time or two? Yes. He will. But we were expecting the 4 other guys on the offensive line we talked about dominant. Dominant. Be a top 3 offensive line. And if you've got 4 offensive linemen who are well above average, Tooney's well above average, Creed's well above average, Trey Smith is well above average. This year he's dealt with some injuries, but overall he's been good. And if you add the guy who is asking for top left tackle money, not playing even like an average player, and if he is average, he's average in the crappy games. I don't need you to be average in the crappy games. I need you to be good I need you to be Mr. I want to be paid top 5. Excuse me. Against Von Miller. Against, Trey Hendrickson. I need you in the biggest games. Like in the biggest games that mean something. I need you to be that guy. And he's not. And you can't pay him that kind of money. You offer him 3 years, $50 million, and say, hey, you know what? We'll go that route. But same question. What are they going to do? Oh, they ended up franchising. They're going to have the same issue this year. What are you going to do at left tackle? What are you going to do at right tackle? What are you going to do? How can we protect Mahomes? Because in the 3 losses, they haven't protected him at all. So the same issue on March 15th, when I think the new league year started, they did not answer that question. And then the biggest issue. Number one issue going into 2022. How are we going to rush the passer? The number one issue for the Kansas City Chiefs going into 2023. How are we going to rush the passer? You brought back Frank Clark because he took a pay cut. And you thought, well, maybe we can get by. You drafted George Karlaftis. I like George Karlaftis. He's a rookie. If anybody knows, rookies normally don't make that big of an impact in the pass rush unless you're a top 15 guy. And if you want to point out to guys like Micah Parsons, he was drafted 11th. Guys drafted 11th compared to 30th, that is a big difference. I think he's been good. But he hasn't been he's the answer to the pass rush. And the expectations for George Karlaftis shouldn't have been Micah Parsons. Shouldn't have been J.J. Watt. We're talking about the exceptions, not the rules. Okay? Even number 1 draft picks, Walker from Jacksonville, is not having a good year. And you're expecting the 30th pick overall to be dominant, to solve your issues? That's unrealistic expectations for me. And then the hope was, okay, Mike Dana, he's going to improve. He has. Oh, we signed Carlos Dunlap. He has helped the Kansas City Chiefs. But you got to address it, to me, maybe a little bit differently. You're going to have to go out and you are either it's kind of like buying a car. The more you spend on a car, the more you're probably going to get. You go and spend $15,000 on a car. Is it going to get the job done? Like, it's going to get you point A to point B, right? Not as big, not as roomy, doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it's still, hey, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Like a Ford Taurus, I think anybody goes to like the most generic car, they go to the Ford Taurus. Hey, it's kind of nice, It's fine. It's fine. But then let's say you go and you want to spend $50,000, I can tell you that you spend 50 grand, you're going to get a lot better for your car. You're going to get either a big SUV, or if you want to stay the car route, you're going to get a way better ride, a little bit more speed, a little bit more turbo, a little bit better gas mileage. You're going to get a lot more amenities. You ain't getting no heated seats than a generic, just right off the rack Ford Taurus. Might get the air conditioned seats. I've sat in one of those cars. You ever sat in a car with air conditioned seats? Man, it's awesome. You're gonna get more. I mean, that's as simple as that. Now, there are certain things, where you don't spend as much money, you can still get by. Look at the Chiefs' cornerback position. They've got a first-round pick, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and a seventh-round pick. And the first round pick is super cheap for 4 years. And then you got really super cheap guys. Third round pick in Snead, fourth round pick in Williams, and then a 7th round pick in Justin Watson. And they drafted McDuffie, at 21st, which, not top 10. Like, you can get that. It's like, I kind of look at, like generic cereal brands. A generic cereal brand, right? I buy the generic cereal brand. It's Toasted Oats. My son likes Cheerios. I don't buy him Cheerios. I buy him Toasted Oats. You want to know why? Because you don't know the difference. A Cheerio versus a Toasted Oat, okay? I love Cinnamon Toast Crunch. CTC. Fantastic. I don't buy Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I buy Cinnamon Swirls. Okay? It's the knockoff brand. And it's the generic brand. It's the Kroger brand, Doesn't taste any different. There is a difference between a Ford Taurus and like an Audi XL. You know what I mean? Like, there is a difference. That's the pass rush. You're going to have to give up something of value. You're going to have to trade. They're going to have to do what they did with Frank Clark. We're going to give a first round pick and try to actually make a difference. Overall, Frank Clark trade has not been great. But he gave us the Super Bowl. He helped out a lot. Right? I saw somebody say, the Matt Stafford trade for the Rams is going to end up being terrible because now, he has a serious injury right now. I mean, real serious. Like a neck contusion or something like that. And people are saying, we view trades long term. I agree. But the Rams won a Super Bowl. That's what would you? Oh, I'm not gonna. Would you rather have Jared Goff there and no Super Bowl, or Matt Stafford a Super Bowl and then he gets hurt and he's going to be maybe out who knows how long? Give me the Super Bowl, man. Like, give me a Super Bowl. If you told me the Chiefs right now get a Super Bowl, I don't give a crap what happens the next year. That's why the loss against the Bucks, it stunk, but I mean, it does help that the Chiefs did win. Now, if they didn't win the Super Bowl the year before, that Bucks loss would hurt a lot more. Like, go back to the Royals. Yeah, they had to get rid of a bunch of young talent, right? Don't give a damn. I got to go to a parade. They won the World Series. So saying, that Matt Stafford trade, that ended up being a bad one. Completely wrong. Just like, to me, Frank Clark. Do they win the Super Bowl without Frank Clark? I don't know. And if the answer is I don't know, then it's a good trade. Would I have liked it to be better? But I'd like him to play better the last 3 years, obviously. But that's what it takes. That is what it takes to rush the passer. You are going to have to trade up in the draft and draft a game changer. You are going to have to do something to make your team better via the pass rush. Otherwise, the Chiefs are going to be the same next year. They're going to be very good. They're going to win 13 games. And then it comes down to a couple games in the postseason. If the Chiefs don't fumble it by Travis Kelce, they probably win the football game. Same situation in the playoffs coming up. Unless you are that much better than the opposing team, it always comes down to a few plays, whether ones that you make it or you don't. But it always helps to have better talent. That's why the Bills went out and got Von Miller. They're going for it. Hey, respect to him. No question. They went out and paid him. But the same issue for 2022 is going to be the same issue, the two biggest issues, for 2023. Nothing has changed. Left tackle, right tackle for 2022. Pass rush in 2023. I don't see there's no way you can't extend Chris Jones. Like you saw what happened in the game. They double teamed Chris Jones every play. Somebody else beat us. Like, to me, the Kansas City Chiefs' first pick in the draft coming up is another pass rusher. In fact, you can argue that the Kansas City Chiefs' first-round pick the next 3 years should be a pass rusher, no matter what. Oh, you drafted Karlaftis. Now you're going to draft, just an example, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, and then you're going to draft, the next guy. Like 3 straight years, they should draft a pass rusher in the first round. Go out and, you need a better left tackle, in my opinion. Or you go out and draft one, you trade for one, but they the same issues, and that's frustrating. Going into 22, left tackle, what's going to happen there? And everybody knows I was not on board. I was on board of going out and getting somebody different. I'm glad they didn't franchise tag Orlando or sign Orlando Brown long term. I'd been on that train. We can go all the way back to last year. I wouldn't give him a long-term deal because I didn't think he put enough body of work on the field to warrant being paid like a top 10 left tackle. I was right in that situation. He definitely isn't. And Orlando Brown bet on himself, and I wonder how much money he's going to cost. He might cost himself $10 million. If somebody out there pays him $50 million guaranteed, you're probably, you're probably like the Bears or the Lions. You're always bad. And there's a reason you're always bad. Coming up next, we are going to get to a little odds makers here on Mic'd Up. Time for a little bit of odds makers here on this edition of Mic'd Up. Filling in for Fulton Caster, Kyle Manthe. All right, Kyle. What are the odds that Bryce Young and Will Anderson play in the Sugar Bowl I've already started seeing the really good linebacker for Arkansas. Gosh, I don't remember his name, but he's really good. Like he's a first, second round pick. Oh gosh, let me get his name. I'm trying to think of it. Drew Sanders. He is declaring for the NFL draft, and he will not play in the Liberty Bowl. We know that. That's happened a time or two. Happens all the time now, right? Guys who are, don't want to play in the bowl game. I remember Christian McCaffrey, did that when he was with Stanford. Bryce Young, Heisman Trophy winner. He's a junior. Will Anderson, one of the best linemen in the college world. I mean, he's a top 5 pick. What are the odds that Bryce Young and Will Anderson play in the Sugar Bowl against K-State?
I think right now I'd put it right at 50-50 that both of them play.
Yeah.
Probably 50-50. Better chance maybe one of them plays, or maybe plays half the game or something like that. And I know you talked about it yesterday. I'd like for both of them to play and play the whole game, just so that way you can say we got the whole Alabama experience and we can see full strength K-State against Alabama. But at the end of the day, it's a smart decision ultimately, as much as we won't like it for them to not play. But I'll put some hope and say 50-50.
I think there is a 10% chance. And I think Will Anderson is 100% not playing. No, I don't want to say, I'll say 90, we'll say 95% not playing. Bryce Young, I think, might. That's why I'll put it at 10%. Maybe 20% for Bryce Young because he's a quarterback. But we're talking Bryce Young and Will Anderson are top 5 picks. Both of them playing 10%. But let me rephrase that. One of them playing either or 10%. Both of them playing less than 5%. I just don't think they will. I don't think they will. Just to let everybody know here, I thought this was, it's not interesting to me because of we've interviewed Deuce Vaughn a whole bunch and we know kind of what Deuce Vaughn is all about. But Gabe Eichert is on the Big 12 channel on Sirius, and they asked Deuce Vaughn, is he planning on playing in the Sugar Bowl against Alabama? His answer, yes, sir, I'm going to compete, end quote. I don't know if Deuce is going to the NFL or not. He hasn't given any thought, and he's never said anything publicly. Now, there might be some people who know if he's going to give it a shot or not, or in what way he's leaning. I don't know. But publicly, on the record and all that kind of stuff, he hasn't said anything. And I'm not surprised Deuce Vaughn said this. Deuce Vaughn, he says, I'm going to compete. He's going to play with his guys. Deuce Vaughn is also not a first or second round pick. He's not Bijan Robinson. I don't think Bijan Robinson's going to play in whatever bowl that they're in. Was he the Alamo Bowl or something like that? I don't even know. I don't really care. They're going to be gone in 2 years anyways. I don't think he's going to play. I don't know. Like, if Deuce Vaughn was coming back, well, obviously he's going to play. He's going to come back next year. But I don't know if that means anything because Deuce is going to play no matter what. That's just who Deuce Vaughn is. He's going to want to play with his team at the Sugar Bowl. Now, maybe it's different because Kansas State has never played in the Sugar Bowl. That's a big deal. Whereas Alabama, they think the Sugar Bowl is stupid. It's not a playoff game. But yeah, I am with you. I hope they do. I just don't. I think in the next 10 days, by the 16th, I think both of them will announce that they're not going to play in the Sugar Bowl. I hope I'm wrong. I think Will Anderson, yeah, I think he's going to be done. But Bryce Young, maybe there's a chance. Maybe.
You know what they say. There's always a chance.
That's why I can't go 100%.
Jake, my odds makers for you. You're a little down on the Chiefs last segment, talking about the same problems carrying over from year to year.
Mhm.
What are the odds that the Chiefs run the table the last 5 games, finish with 14 wins? Perfect 5-0.
They should. They should. I mean, the schedule is not good at all. You play the Broncos twice, you play the Raiders, and then you play the Seahawks. And am I missing one other game?
At Houston.
At Houston. Why did they even play that game? I'm gonna say, I'll say 85% that they go undefeated the rest of the way. The only game that they shouldn't, that should honestly be competitive, is the Seahawks game, and then maybe the Raiders, but the Broncos and the Texans shouldn't. So I'll say 85% that they should run the rack and go 5-0. 85%. If they lose any one of these 5 games, woof.
I'll join you right there at 80%. I think the Raiders game could be competitive, but that's only because maybe Patrick Mahomes he's like Bryce Young. He's not playing that game.
Well, I think he wouldn't have played if they beat the Bengals. Because I still think there is a better than 50-50 chance that the Chiefs get the 1 seed. In fact, I'll ask you that. What are the odds that the Chiefs get the 1 seed? All they got to do is win out, which we talked about the schedule. Not good. And then the Bills have to lose 1 game. And the Bills still have 3 tough games left against the Jets, against the Bengals, and against the Dolphins. What are the percentages that the Chiefs, what are the odds that the Chiefs get the 1 seed?
I'd say 60%. I think from the Chiefs side, if the games need to be won for the Chiefs, all of these games, they can win all of them. It's just the Bengals, their schedule's tougher. I think that's where, even though they just lost last week, you can still have some belief in the Chiefs that they'll overcome that and they'll leap the Bills as well and end up in the 1 seed. I think the Chiefs, they can take care of their own business if they need to. So I'll say 60%.
See, I think it's better than 50-50. I'm with you. I think the Bills are going to lose one of those 3 games. Those are 3 hard games. And then they play on the road at the Patriots. Now, the problem with the Patriots is their offense is boo-boo. It is not good. But yeah, I'll say 55%. Better chance than not, but still not a lock, still not a guarantee. Do you watch the World Cup? Are you a World Cup guy?
Very casually.
Casually.
I've
okay.
dropped off now that America's out.
Okay.
Very casually.
Okay. What are the odds that Brazil or France, one of those 2 teams, wins the World Cup?
I'll go again 50-50. Just in general, I like taking the field in these scenarios if I can. Although
Okay.
I know Brazil, I think they won 4-1 yesterday over South Korea.
It was the butt whooping.
Felt a little bad for the South Korean team there. I'll say 50-50.
50-50?
Generally two dominant countries. But still the field.
The reason I bring that up is I think those 2 teams are going to play each other for the World Cup. They're on the opposite sides of the bracket. I think if France beats England, I think France will advance. I think the winner of France-England will come from the bottom. And then I think Brazil is going to beat Argentina. I think it's going to be Argentina, Brazil, and then France and Portugal. And that's why I put the 2 teams that I think are going to, and separate, they have a chance to both be there. And if they both win their semifinals, I'm guaranteed a victory. But I'm going to go 60%. I think they're the 2 best teams, and they got the best attackers in the world. Right now, Portugal is beating the Swiss 5-1. And a 20-year-old kid has a hat trick.
Crazy.
21 years old, scoring hat tricks in the World Cup in a knockout round. That's incredible. That's incredible. I don't know what you're doing in 2026, Will you go to a World Cup game in 2026?
If I have the opportunity to go to a game, I'll definitely go to a game. I don't know that I'll be there, but I'll definitely try.
Odds of me going to a World Cup game, if I'm alive, if I'm alive, 100%. Even if I go, by myself, but my wife has already said, I'll ride with you. I'll go with you. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But no, 100%. 100% I'll be going to a World Cup match coming up in 2026. We'll get a timeout. Coming up next, the Kansas City Chiefs. Same old, same old. A tiger doesn't change his stripes and a leopard doesn't change his spots. We'll get to that coming up. Why I was a little bit hesitant on OBJ. The Cowboys are reportedly concerned about Odell Beckham Jr.'s ability to return in 2022. That's what I've been saying for a while. He got injured in the Super Bowl. All right. he got injured in February, and specifically the date is the 13th. Let's do some math. 10 months. Right? February to March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December the 10th, or December the 13th. That's 10 months. We haven't even gotten to 10 months yet. We're December the 6th. We're talking about December the 10th, or the 13th would be 10 months since he tore it. Surgery a little bit later. This is his second ACL. Sometimes you don't come back after a second ACL in 10 months. Is it possible? Yes. But there are plenty of people who have torn their knee and are not back for a year. And then they don't feel, like themselves for 15 months. That's the legitimate concern, which is why if Odell Beckham Jr. tore his knee in like October, yes, go out and get OBJ. Because, hey, you know what? He's probably playing in December. That's 14 months. You got him for the stretch run. But we're not even at 10 months. You think that he's going to be fully go 100%? Learn a new offense, do all of that in 10 months? That's 10 months, 11 months. January the 13th. That's 11 months. You're already in the second round of the playoffs. No, I take that back. Beg your pardon. Because of the 18-game schedule, that would be the wild card round. Last game of the regular season is the 8th. So 11 months from his ACL tear, it'd be the 13th. So that'd be the wild card round, either the 14th or the 15th. Yeah, there should be legitimate concerns. I hope that he's healthy. I go do your thing, Odell Beckham Jr. Look what he did for the Rams. Yeah, he was the best player in the Super Bowl until he got hurt. But that just came up. That's from Sports Illustrated because the Cowboys have been rumored for OBJ. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but the Kansas City Chiefs, so far in their losses, they are consistent. In their losses this year and their last 4 losses, to be honest with you, against the Bengals, they have repeated the same situation. A big mental gaffe, a mistake, turnover, fumble, muff punt at a big time spot, or, big drop, a big mental mistake. Because to me, those are mental stuff. Focus on, catch the football, especially when nobody's on you. I don't expect you to just high point a ball and, do a one-handed catch like Jamar Chase did, even though he was out of bounds. I don't expect you to do that. But do I expect you to not fumble it in the middle of the field? Do I expect you to not muff a punt? Do I expect you to catch the football in the end zone? Like I do. Every one of those 4 games, their last 4 losses, 3 to the Bengals, 1 to the Colts, and to the Bills, that's what has happened. They also don't pressure the quarterback. Don't protect the quarterback. And Andy Reid makes that's not something that I would have done in that situation. Andy Reid was aggressive in the game against the Bengals, except for the time when he needed to be. And he took what was given to him. 3rd and 8, they run it, touchdown. Isaiah Pacheco. They go for it on 4th and 3. Mahomes dives into the end zone, touchdown. 3rd and 3. Don't run it. Don't even decide to go for it, even if you get a yard or no yards. And then you kick the field goal. And Butker hasn't necessarily been automatic from super deep. Like, this is his worst year as a kicker right now. Worst year as a kicker. That's the Chiefs right now in their losses. Every one of them has had those 4 characteristics. And I think the 2 most important are the bad decisions by Andy Reid and then not getting to the quarterback. I don't think it's panic time because they beat Tampa Bay at that time. Maybe it doesn't look as big of a win. By the way, Tampa Bay winning yesterday. Wow. Down 17-6, or no, down 16-6, and they scored 2 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes. Whew, that was impressive. But their best win against San Francisco. Didn't have any botched plays. Protected the quarterback mostly. Andy Reid was aggressive, and we got a pass rush. Hell, Frank Clark got a safety. Where's that Frank Clark? But the game against the Bills, the Colts, the Bengals, 2 games against the Bills last year. I mean, it's pretty simple. When the Chiefs and the funny thing, and this is how wide of a range the Chiefs have, is if one of those situations doesn't happen, they win every one of those games. You protect the quarterback, Chiefs beat the Bengals. You don't have a mental gaffe, beat the Colts. You protect Mahomes, probably beat the Bills. Andy Reid makes a better call, you probably win the game. Like, just one of them. I don't need all 4 of them to be right. If all 4 of them are right, Chiefs are winning every damn game by like 30. I just need in a big game. These are big games. I'm not talking about the Jaguars or the Texans or, you know, the Rams with the team that they had, or the Titans when they're trotting out, you know, a guy who couldn't throw the football, which is technically the Rams too. They're going to beat those teams with their C game. But in the good big games, just one of those 4, the Chiefs win all those games. Coming up next, we'll wrap things up with the mic drop.